Hello everyone, as has been the case every Saturday for a while, we take another dive into the mysterious world of the Forgotten Languages website, exploring its ties with UFOs. Today's topics include the mysterious race of Giselians, more Giselians, and the UFO flap over Iran in 1976. But before that, I would appreciate a lot if you could like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and share the video. This way we can spread the awareness of the UFO phenomenon, its reality, and our interaction with non-human intelligence as we draw near the actual disclosure. Thank you. We are going through year 2015, picking up where we left in the last episode. Let us begin with an introduction and the mention which has been a running theme lately, the Giselians. This is an alien or non-human race of beings which, according to the Forgotten Languages, has been behind some of the best known encounters with UFOs and aliens, just to mention the 1996 Varginha incident in Brazil and the eponymous encounter in 1976 over Tehran and Gisel in Iran, following an attempt by an Iranian Air Force at taking down one of the craft, which failed. On the 19th February, the website posted an article titled 64 Years of Excavations in Gilan, Iran, Final Memory of Findings, Biological Specimens, and Artifacts Recovery. So there we are. The same species, the same location, but instead of a UFO dogfight, we have a mention of an archaeological discovery. This topic is not new in ufology either. Between an alleged UFO craft too big to move, to alleged craft found during archaeological digs, through various theories like those posited by the late Zecharia Sitchin, there seems to be a trail of non-human origin accompanying us through time. If the title of the article is right, the digs mentioned here would have started in 1951, within the time frame of the sharp rise in UFO sightings post-World War II. Let us decipher the English parts of the text.
That Giselle is somehow a hotspot for out-of-Earth visitors is out of dispute. The frequency of sightings and the open hostility shown by the beings operating those objects have now a record spanning more than 50 years. Whatever they lost in Giselle seems to be extremely valuable for those violent visitors.
We have the potentially hostile nature of Giselians mentioned again, as well as history of their appearances dating back to indeed early 1950s, if the website is correct here. I admit that I know fair little of the local history of UFOs in Iran other than the famous 1976 incident, but that does not necessarily mean that the region is void of sightings and encounters either. Curiously enough, the area around Giselle, which we can see in the image from the website, seems to have been an arena of two other major incidents, which precipitated the formation of an international force retrieving crashed UFO craft.
The so-called 1976 Tehran UFO incident was probably the tip of the iceberg. No records exist of the previously 1970 and 1972 high-level events, which prompted for the formation of the International Recovery Program.
The activity did not seem to cease. The next mention coincides with two important events in the wider region. The finding of the alleged tomb of King Gilgamesh of ancient myths, which we have already mentioned, and the Second Iraqi War. It seems that there was an interesting activity taking place farther to the north of the war area too.
The 2003 high-level event involved the recovery of the downed craft from the depths of the Caspian Sea, which gave us the opportunity to gather information on the biology of those beings and their level of technological development.
Biologics would have been recovered in the crashed craft, I believe. Moreover, the geographical location would also make sense to have an international team involved. Technically speaking, it's outside of any official jurisdiction of the United States, who have the best and the most quasi-official experience in such operations, and we could also expect Russian involvement here, another country rumored to have its own UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering operations going deep undercover. This is further explained in the next two paragraphs.
The Giselle site is both amazing and frustrating. Amazing for the many artifacts and the 5 complete, almost intact bodies recovered there, and frustrating because the site is located in a currently unfriendly country, which makes operations hard. Non-terrestrial artifacts have been discovered and identified from the site of Giselle and the crash site in Syalk. The abundance of extraordinary biological findings, which coincided with the peak of UFO sightings in the area, has encouraged some team members to believe that those bodies have a special meaning for the visitors. With regard to the reason for the burials in Giselle, it is possible to provide two possible answers. One is that the bodies belong to the crew of a previous mission to Earth that simply died by natural causes and were subsequently buried, and the other could be that this was done when the crew members were killed in an accident and buried altogether.
This would mean that not only the crashed craft from the Caspian Sea had biologics, but that more of those were found during the archaeological excavations. Moreover, we have the mention of artifacts of alien origin, including the mysterious cadets, which seem to be a piece of technology developed by the Giselians. We also have some maps of the area, while the last part of the article mentions the Cassini Diskus, a device and a system of communication based on hyper-advanced encryption and decryption techniques, enabling the reception of messages of non-human origin. Whether such a device really exists is unknown, but perhaps it is a reverse-engineered piece of alien technology.
Some of the bodies found in the Giselle site deserve special mention for the pattern of disposal, as well as for the association with strange technological objects, in particular with the so-called Cassini Diskus.
For the sake of completeness, let's read some of the bibliography mentions, as these are quite interesting too. We've got an article from 2012, Joint Human Exobiological Defense Program, JHEDP 07 2012. An article from 2004, so before the official site launch. Preliminary report on the Giselian objects recovered at Iraq. Defense report. An article from 2010. INAA and PICS analysis of Giselian objects recovered from Giselle, Iran. Defense report. And an unpublished article from 2005. INAA and EDX results from allegedly Giselian object KYR 377. The topic returned on the last day of February 2015 in an article mentioning the 1976 encounter in Iranian skies between pilots of the Iranian Air Force and a UFO. 1976, beautiful skies over Gilan. Since we had an intro earlier on, let us dive straight into the readable text. There were three high-level events of which we know that made the difference. Obviously, the crucial one was the one occurring in denied Iran on September the 14th. We lost an excellent opportunity to obtain valuable information about Giselians because at the time, both the Soviets and us were involved in hostile L-IND operations in that area. All along the incident, the Soviets thought that the crafts were ours and we thought the crafts were theirs. 6. By 1976, with no increase in the rate of ICBM launcher construction, the USSR could have a 4-to-1 superiority over the US in ICBM salvo. We do not expect a continuation at this rate, but it would be certainly possible. The number would be 4,000 to 1,000. 7. By 1976, the US will have a superiority in the number of strategic ballistic missile warheads of about denied over the Soviet force. Project IBEX comprised 3 L-IND and 2 EW facilities. They were named Taxman. Taxman 3 were the main ground station running Project Melody, devoted to intercept Soviet missile tracking radars, and more specifically ICBM beacon signals. Taxman 4 was responsible for intercepting downlinks with high-resolution photographs coming from Soviet spy satellites. The topic of mutually mistaken identities of strange objects is also one known from recent news in ufology. Those who watch journalists George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, for example, interviewing the whistleblower Matthew Brown, heard the mention of a craft, whether an actual alien UFO of a human-made ARV or an alien reproduction vehicle, met by a Russian fleet of ships which seemed to know or at least anticipate the arrival of the craft at the rendezvous point. It is not that suspect that, especially during the Cold War, the US and the USSR could have mistaken alien tech for that of their adversary. Also, it would seem that the key encounter over Iran was just one in a wave of sightings and encounters typical for UFOs, as we hear the following. From the point of view of Elin, 1976 was also a hot year. It was in Clovis, New Mexico, where we first had the opportunity to thoroughly track and interact with a Giselian craft in what we know as the CAFB exchange. The exchange of signals spanned from January to mid-April. Ironically, John L. Acuff, president of NICAP, was attending a TV show in the Spanish television together with von Däniken, where they discussed the probabilities of intelligent extraterrestrial life. The Giselian forward wave started being noticed by November 1975 all over the world. All of the UFO flaps we have notice of, this was the most extraordinary as Giselian visitors ventured to even land in at least 3 occasions. One of them in Spain, one of the 25th of February, the others in Denied and Denied on the Denied. NMCC people were really worried as Giselians were reported to fly over 35 sensitive military facilities. Does the last part sound familiar? It resembles the famous New Jersey drones from late 2024 and last year, as well as early this year, capable of shutting down fully fledged military and air force bases. Moreover, the last paragraph ties into the narrative of aliens being heavily interested in our nuclear technology, perhaps from a military viewpoint. It was obvious to us that the visitors were involved in a highly intel gathering operation, as the number of planes being chased and tracked were extremely high. The sightings over nuclear and military installations were peaking, and the number of high-level events was also unusual. Project Melody was also able to pick up Soviet radar return signals from their own ICBMs during test flights and used existing CIA Taxman intercept sites in Iran. The idea was to use the missile's telemetry beacon to steer our antennas, and it produced intercepts of all ground-based Soviet missile tracking radars, including all ABM radars and Denied facilities in Denied. On September the 17th, 1976, we were calibrating one of the systems after data intercepted on the 16th related to Soyuz 22. On September the 18th, Taxman 1 was monitoring 2 bats flying along the Soviet border. From Mehrabad, a RF-4E took off to support the mission. We are having problems since early September with the system, as we were receiving strong pulses of unknown origin that we wanted to ascertain were not due to a system malfunction. The pulses behaved erratically and did not conform to any of our signal profiles in the signal database. We held the view those pulses had to do with Soviet ICBM beacons, yet no activity was shown about any ICBM test carried out. We required support from both Taxman 1 and 2 and asked them whether they could come up with an approximate location of the origin of the pulses. At some time on the evening of the 18th, we identified the origin of the pulses near a location called Gisel in Gilan. We were totally confused as we were expecting the source to be in Soviet territory and not on Iranian soil. So, more ties into the broader UFO lore. The fact that those craft or their occupants are capable of switching nuclear missiles off and on at will, thus having the complete ability of disarming or starting a nuclear apocalypse, has been mentioned many times, from first-hand witnesses of such events like Captain Robert Salas to writers of books such as Lou Elizondo and his Imminent, or the documentary movie The Age of Disclosure. Moreover, the non-English parts of the text also have the word interdimensional interspersed in them, as if suggesting the potential origin of those strange visitors. Another common theme in ufology, as it seems at least some of the non-human intelligences visiting the Earth seem to come from somewhere else, the best we can put it, either using a wormhole-like technology or being from a different part of reality altogether. There are a few more military mentions, including biological effects, radar tech, etc. Let us mention them all here verbatim. Early in the morning on the 19th, Taxman 2 reported civilian comms UHF activity at the Mehrabad airport denied, and the scramble of a phantom jet by IAAF towards the last position known of the main unidentified object. Object showed inordinate maneuverability, and the pattern of pulses suddenly changed to denied at 47 nanometers north of Tehran at 0105 hours. Denied a big object positioned over the marked position near Giselle. A third and a fourth objects were visible over the Giselle area, showing denied strong blips centered around the denied gigahertz channel. Remains unexplained how multiple 121.12 MHz signals were received, as if the ground were covered with hundreds of emergency beacons. Memo 2. The maneuvers were clearly hostile. Deployment of what seems to be jamming artifacts of unknown origin were found around the denied and denied area. An object brightly glowing in blue standing on Earth when the recovery team arrived on the evening of the 20th. Strong official denial regarding possible extraterrestrial origin of the objects. Further confusion about whether military activities carried out around Giselle in order to recover the beacon were justified within the framework of the current treaties signed with the Iranians or not. Memo 3. We're all affected with nausea and dizziness. Two of the recovery team members felt a burning feeling in the chest. Dramatic decrease in lymphocyte counts in 4 of the 6 men exposed to the beacon pulse. The man was reportedly very anxious and showed erythema on his chest and face extending. Page denied. Having a total loss of epidermis. All 3 died on the morning of the 5th of November 1976. Well, those parts seem to describe the Iran encounter in the great detail, including many items reported years later by the members of the Iranian military at the time, at least what they could disclose. If this was not enough, there is more odd information in the bibliography to the article, so let me show you how strange things can quickly become with forgotten languages. File 347. On the exact situation prevailing at the time of loss of the 2 RF-4Cs. On whether the Soviet MiG-25 RBS was hit inside Soviet territory or at the side of the Iranian border. Confirmation requested that the signals from the object were also received by the Tehran launch site radars. Meeting with denied and denied, where it was concluded that the maximum priority now was to analyze Belenko's MiG-25 in Japan. Meeting with denied and denied, urging the service to reassign assets to analyze intel gathered related to China's nuclear test at Lop-Nor. Decision not to share any information about the Giselle incident with the Iranians. Reply from the Soviets that they will not share with us any information related to the Giselle high-level events if Belenko's affair is not properly handled. File 350. Report on the 26th September 1976 Lop-Nor nuclear test. Report on the 29th September 1976 Novaya Zemlya nuclear test. Final report on the Clovis Giselian UFO. Report on Cosmos 777 25th of January 76 debris event. Report on Pageo's 10th September 1976 debris event. File 351 Giselle. Final report on the Canary Island high-level events between 20th and 2012 September 76. Final report on the Morocco Transect high-level events between the 15th and the 20th September 76. Draft on potential locations of Giselian beacons in Mauritania. Draft on potential locations of Giselian beacons in Algeria. Preliminary assessment of the Yambu-Kozair landing. Proposal for analysis of the Nzara Madiri Sudan contaminated subjects. Draft on confirmed locations of Giselian beacons in Iran. Preliminary disinformation report. Proposal to assign Giselian HLE in Western Mediterranean to 1976 074C/09051. Proposal to leave IAAF's accounts of Giselian HLE over Tehran as is. Tapes on SIGINT as recorded by Kapkan Station. A lot of mentions here, a lot of military jargon and acronyms which might be sold by someone better versed in that terminology than myself. In any case, we have seen that the Giselians are not just mysterious visitors. They seem to be the subject of intense studies both by scientists and archaeologists, but first and foremost by the military, who seem to be probing their capabilities as much as Giselians seem to be tinkering around our own systems. What do you think about all of this, dear viewers? Do you think any of this is genuinely real, or is it just an expansion of the information already circulating around since 1976? I know that the current situation in Iran is extremely difficult, not to mention the internet availability over there, but perhaps someone from the viewers is of Iranian origins and would be kind enough to share anything they know, something that could shed some light on this mystery perhaps. And in any case, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and I will be back with you in another video next week.